Hello and welcome to Sidequest. This is our weekly video game show here at Geekverse. I'm your host, Dylan Muss, and I have with me the Rift Maker, Kirklin. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, sir.
I am excited to find out what this nickname is about. Off the top of my head, I don't know. What is it? Is it one where it was just your nickname from a previous cast, or is it relevant for...
It is relevant.
Okay.
It is relevant, yeah.
I'm excited to get into that. Today's episode is going to be fun. I'd say it's one of those more low-key episodes. We're going to talk about some of the games we've been playing, but there wasn't a whole lot in the news recently, so it's going to be a chill one. We'll see how it goes, and I'll save any sort of plugs for later on. But I think we'll just jump right into it here by taking a look at the video game draft. That, of course, back in January we all picked a handful of games, and then in August there we actually added some games, and since then a few more things have been added. So I want to do a quick check-in on that. Let's see here. So what is new on your list, Kirklin? You had Black Myth Wukong come out.
My big hitter.
Unfortunately on PS5, which you picked, it's only letting you 75 points. It was a lot higher on PC.
Damn.
So maybe it'll pick up over time. I don't know if that would happen. But that game kind of came out of nowhere, and it was like the biggest game in the world. And I honestly thought the reviews for it would be better than it was, because I feel like I've heard nothing but glowing reviews, or maybe I just thought that it sold so well and so I over associated it or something.
I think I heard this. I think I was just in the same mental space because of that news. I'm like, oh man, I got such a winner. And then like I saw, I think it was Steam that it was breaking those records on. So then that's where I'm like, oh, did I do PC? I knew I did do PlayStation just because, I don't know, I figured those types of games usually run better on consoles like at launch. But I don't know. It's interesting. Because, yeah, I've only heard good things, and it looks fantastic. It's another game that I'm not in a rush to get to, but I am excited to eventually dabble in it. It looks pretty insane with some of those boss battles.
Yeah, where is that for you in terms of how you're kind of newer-ish into some Souls games? You've dabbled here and there. You talked about Elden Ring recently. You've talked about Dark Souls, or I think it was earlier this year or last year. So I don't know, where does that one go in your like tier list, or not tier list, but in terms of your playlist of getting to some of these more Souls-like games? And obviously you're a big fan of Neo as well.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty low just because there is so much like content for me to consume on that front. Like I never finished Dark Souls 1, you know, like I'm still probably pretty damn early in Elden Ring as well. So I still have a lot of titles. Even Neo 2, like I haven't had the chance to really jump into that one. I played mostly just the first game. So which Neo 2 I have on PlayStation. So like it's really not a rush to get to that game, and I don't know. It's pretty on the back burner right now, but it does look fantastic. So
yeah, definitely. So I brought you up first because unfortunately you're currently in last place. You got 207 points. The other games that have released right now, Rise of the Ronin and South Park Snow Day. That was the big one that tanked. South Park,
yeah.
of course. But you still have Flight Simulator coming out. You have Stalker 2, Frostpunk 2, and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So all of these, I think, are going to come out this year. I don't think you're going to get hit with any delays. Actually, Frostpunk, it did get delayed, but did it get delayed out of this year? I'm going to double check that right now.
I think it initially had a release of September. August.
But it looks like it just got kicked to September. So I think you're safe.
Okay.
I think all your things are coming out. And I mean, Flight Simulator, they called it Flight Simulator 2024. So
yeah.
they are legally obliged to release that
exactly.
one. So I think you're looking good to close out the year. For me, I put that in the wrong spot. I've only had one new game come out since the last time we checked in, which is Astrobot, and that's at a 94. That is a
that's crazy.
Beautiful score to see. So along with Senua's Saga and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I'm sitting at 267. The big news, which I don't think we actually talked about this on SideQuest at all, but Avowed has officially been delayed out of this year. That's on my list. So that's probably what's going to sink me this year. Once again, it always, for me, it comes down to a delay. You know, this game, they assured us back in June when they covered it again, like, oh, it's coming out this year. And nope, just a few weeks ago it got kicked again. So I'm probably going to lose on that. But once again, I'm sitting at the fact that I have the best average for scores on games released. So that's my streak I'm aiming for at this point.
Nice.
In third place at this point, or rather in second place, is Travis with 397 or 396 points. So his new addition was Star Wars Outlaws. He got his 76 for that one being on his list. And then he also has Pacific Drive, Helldivers 2, Peach Showtime, and Like Dragon Infinite Wealth. And then he still has Indiana Jones and Mario Party Jamboree coming out. So I don't know. I feel like Mario Party, probably in the 70s or 80s. Maybe Indiana Jones pops off, but I'm thinking that's probably in the 80s as well. So I think he's gonna have solid like 80 average for kind of all his games. And then in first place is Taylor Field right now, 409 points. Sitting up there, he's got Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Tekken 8, Dragon's Dogma 2, Terminator Dark Fate, and then just recently released the World of Warcraft DLC, The War Within, which gave him an 85. And then he still has Mario and Luigi Brothership coming out and Assassin's Creed Shadows. So looking pretty good for Taylor. He's got a good list here. Really, Terminator Dark Fate was the stinker at 72, but like as far as stinkers go, that's not too bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised Taylor's on there. For some reason, I had Travis as number one in my mind. But congratulations to him so far. You know, it's not over. But I'm hoping that maybe I can rise up from last place. That's kind of my goal at this point.
Yeah, I wonder, even something like Travis, who has Helldivers 2 with an 83, which is a great score, but I feel like that game should be higher based on how much.
Yeah.
So I don't. Maybe it actually has gone up since I updated this before. You know, the final call at the end of the year. I double check all these scores just to see if any new ones have changed or anything like that. So
right.
It's possible that Helldivers will go up potentially, but. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Peach Showtime didn't hit that hard. Pacific Drive didn't hit that hard. Star Wars Outlaws, like those are all in that 75 range, so a little bit lower on the average, which really all comes down to in the end.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it should be pretty exciting to close out the year with that. Just a few more months, of course, and we're almost there. But how about on that note, we use that as a nice transition with Travis's final pick there. I want to talk a little bit more about Star Wars Outlaws. So we did a review for this last week. Me, Travis, and Taylor were playing through this game. That's what last week's episode was all about. And I beat the game this week. I beat it earlier today. Rolled credits on it. I don't think it really took that long as far as like an open worldy game like this. I think it was like 20, 25 hours somewhere in that pocket. And I've done a lot of side stuff as well. And overall, I still had a great... I don't know if you listened to that episode, Kirklin, last week, but I was very, very positive on that game. Really, really had a great time with it. And that continued to be the case for the rest of the playtime. I think I cooled on it a little bit as it went on, just getting more in-depth with some of the systems, like the faction system, and maybe wanting a bit more from like the characterization of the people in that faction. Like I think overall it was a pretty decent system, but it could have been a little bit better. Some of the combat stuff. I think for me, maybe the biggest weak spot here is actually that the Act 3 of this game, like the final section, is like really weak. Like all the story plot points are very predictable and not that interesting. It relies a lot on like Star Wars nostalgia bait, where it's like bringing in big characters or things that aren't really relevant to what this game was doing, but it's just trying to go out with a bang by bringing in some bigger characters. So I felt like that kind of did a disservice to the game, honestly, for what it was building up in terms of its characters and like the scope of what this game was. And then I think also just like the final couple missions there, where it's like, you know, in these open world games, it always gives you that warning of like you're about to enter the end game where there's the point of no return essentially. And just like there's like 2 or 3 missions after that point, and they were all like kind of weak. So I don't know what happened there. They were just a little bit more linear, I guess. There was less like creative freedom of how you want to tackle these missions. And a couple of them were just like big shootout battles, which is not the game's strong point. It was much better as a stealth game and sneaking around and finding unique paths and that sort of thing. And so I think it just got a little bit weaker in the end there. But still, overall, I really enjoyed the game. I think the way the faction system worked was really intriguing for the most part. I found, too, like, just the economy of the game. I was constantly building up a huge bank of, like, 7,000 credits and then back down to 0 as I'm buying equipment and all these upgrades. And I couldn't just buy whatever I wanted. I had to, like, sell some of my equipment to get better equipment. And I don't know, I just found like some of these things were really, really fine-tuned and well-balanced for at least what I was doing there. And I think maybe the biggest compliment I can give the game is that I rolled credits on it earlier today, and then I've already gone back and I'm trying to do some more, complete some other quests. And I'm not going to go for the 1,000 gamer score achievement situation on this one, but I'm definitely going to keep playing and complete a few more quests. A few more of these expert intel things are pretty fun quests or challenges that I like doing. Like one, for example, when we talked about last week, Taylor said he encountered some death troopers. And he's like, I don't think you can kill these guys. Like, they're just invincible, it seems like. Kind of like in GTA, like when you got that full wanted level and they just send like the crazy SWAT members after you and they just become really hard to kill. But then I got a challenge that's like kill 3 death troopers in a row. So I'm like, oh shit, okay, I have to be able to kill some of these guys now. And apparently that's not very easy. And so I'm still trying to find a spot where there's enough of them and I'm not dying instantly against them to fend them off. So just some good additional challenges to do in there. So overall, it was a really, really fun time. Really enjoying the game. And then I want to bring this in too. So Clay asked a question about this just after we recorded our episode last week, so we didn't include it there. But he asks, do you think, based on the performance, reception of this game so far, that it will get a sequel? And then second question, or will there be another Star Wars game that comes out sooner? I think there will definitely be another Star Wars game that comes out before a sequel to this, just because we have Star Wars Eclipse on the roadmap. We have the KOTOR remake, and even if those are in development hell to some extent, I have to imagine they would come out before a sequel to this. But I don't know, based on the reception you've seen or just general chatter, do you feel like this game's going to be getting a sequel, or is it kind of just a one-off experiment for Ubisoft here?
I haven't closely been following the news around this game, mostly just like word of mouth from like you guys or other people that I know that have played this game, and I don't know, like my initial thoughts are I'd be surprised if it got a sequel. I just don't think it's the type of like game breaking type game for a Star Wars title that just like really has a lot of hype and just has a lot of people talking about that. Let's just like, not only is it a great game, but it's just getting people interested in Star Wars. I've heard that the Star Wars isms of this game are really, really fantastic. So that is definitely something to make note of. But I don't know. I have heard other people just say like, yeah, I didn't really want to be a scoundrel type character for this adventure. You know, like I wish I was a different type of archetype in this universe. So maybe it's better to focus like a story with one of those other like again, bounty hunter or whatever it might be. Star Wars has a lot of different sub factions. So yeah, but I don't know. It's not like the wildest idea, but I still would be surprised.
After hearing us and other people talk about it, are you interested in this game, considering that you can play it for $20 with the Ubisoft subscription thing?
I like more interested. I it was pretty much like I had no hype or interest in this game at all, but I mean, positive reception is always good to hear. So I'm not going to be rushing out to this one. But you know, if it's on a future Game Pass type situation, I could definitely see myself bouncing
Ubisoft
on there.
Plus, you can play it on there.
Yeah, but like it's weird because I have like the PlayStation Platinum whatever catalog thing.
So that's where it'd have to go for you to want to.
But like, there's like Ubisoft catalog stuff on there, so I don't know where like the Ubisoft Plus subscription thing kind of crosses over in that vein, because like all of the Assassin's Creed games are on there, a lot of Far Cry games, like
that's kind of crazy. Wow.
So like when I heard that it had the Ubisoft subscription thing, I was hoping that it was actually just going to drop on there, but it hasn't yet. So that's maybe something that happens in the future. I'm not too sure though. So we'll see what happens. But yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been a lot of, like, I don't think we have sales numbers for this game yet, but I saw an article today that was talking about this game is seemingly underperforming what they expected. I guess they had an expectation by the end of next fiscal year, so March 2025, that the game would sell like 7.5 million copies, and they've dropped that down to 5.5 million copies, which is still like very good. But I feel like for any game, I feel like 10 million is that number where it's like, okay, this game's definitely getting a sequel no matter what, from like a publisher perspective. But that still doesn't seem too shabby. Obviously, they're not at those numbers yet, I would assume. I also feel like there's a couple things really going against this game. One is the Ubisoft element of it. Like me, Travis, and Taylor are at least 3 examples of people who did not buy the game, and those 2 are big Star Wars fans, didn't buy the game and instead just playing it on a subscription service. So they're still getting $20 out of this, but they're not getting the 80 plus tax that they would normally get from a game like this. So I don't know. I think that's one thing. Another thing too is this game was not released on Steam. I think it was like just on Ubisoft's, their like PC app situation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also like, always a huge detriment to any game's sales is if it's not on Steam. If it's on Epic Games, sure, like it's a little bit better than like a Ubisoft situation. But in general, like that's just putting a PC game out not on Steam is just sending it like right to the graveyard, in my opinion. So I feel like that would be a huge thing for this. And this game seems like one that could be really like like get a big modding community for it too, and so that would be just easier, more accessible if people had access to Steam. So maybe it'll come there down the line. I feel like it won't, just because Ubisoft is doing their own thing there. But I feel like if they did, they would instantly get a shit ton more sales, and maybe they've already lost a bit of that hype just because the game's come out and it's like mostly a lukewarm take is like the general takeaway from critics and from people playing it. So I don't know. I think they've definitely dropped the ball in that way. But I would love to see a sequel. I just would be really intrigued to see some of this faction system expanded upon. Like one thing I was thinking about is, we talked about in the review how there's like enemy bases around the map, and depending on what your level of friendship is with that faction, you can like enter some doors and not others. And I realize that is more of like a binary thing. It's like you can either go in the camp or not, and then there's always like an exclusive area that no matter how aligned you are with the group, you just can't get in there. But I feel like on the overworld too, when you're looking at the open world map, there are zones where it's like, oh, this is owned by the Pike Syndicate, this is owned by the Hutt Cartel. I think it'd be really interesting if that was more fluid throughout the game as you're working with certain factions or against other ones. If there's zones, kind of like in a Saints Row sort of way, you're like taking away their districts or adding them on the map. And like, I don't know, the more powerful one gets, the more it kind of dominates over it. And so you can kind of either keep that in check or try to align yourself with them. And I feel like there's just a lot more to be done there. And maybe that would work a lot better if they just stuck to one planet, one world map, instead of doing multiple planets that you can go to. But I also kind of feel like that's just a Star Wars problem, because for whatever reason, every Star Wars planet is like a single biomed planet. So I don't know why that's part of the lore in that world, seemingly. But it's like, yeah, Tatooine only has sand and there's no jungles or no ice areas. Like you can't really mix up the biomes, which is rough for a video game where you want some variety there. So I don't know. I think there's definitely, I can see a lot of ways where a sequel could really just fly, just really take off. But I already enjoyed this so much that I would definitely want a sequel. And I forget what kind of DLC plans they announced for it already, because there was like a premium edition, but I don't know if that actually had like anything meaningful to it, or if it's just every game that's premium edition these days, even if it's like really shitty extra content that is almost meaningless, just so they can try and squeeze an extra few pennies out of like the hardcore fans. So yeah, I think it's too early to tell. I would say right now I would predict no. I don't think this game would get a sequel. I think instead, if even this exact team was given the chance to make another, let's say, Ubisoft-y open world Star Wars game, I think they would maybe do something else. Just pick a different type of character, probably do a Jedi, because that's seemingly what more people want. Or like an evil character or something could be interesting. Something like a Sith character would be fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I doubt they would go that Outlaws approach now. Instead, save that for like your Battlefronts, where you can play as characters like this, I guess. So that would be my my prediction on that. Two points on this game I want to bring up before we move on. One is we talked about last week the hacking minigame. There's kind of two of them. There's one where you're hacking into computers, and it's like a little game of Mastermind. You got to match up the symbols and la-di-da. Then the other one is like a fun little rhythm game where you got to like time trigger presses with like a little light that's flashing. Travis really didn't like that. He opted to like turn it off in the settings, which is cool that you can do that. But I personally love it. I love how quick it is. I love that I like get a little jam going on, and I find that I did, like on the harder like the higher difficulty ones, I just have to sit there for like 30 seconds and really like jam out to the beat, really get into the movement of it, and then I go for it, and it feels so good. And I was thinking, man, I feel like this is one of my favorite hacking mini games in any game, because for the most part it is very quick. You can also you can mash through it, but you can't quite mash through it. Like you have to have maybe some rhythm or some skill or timing to it. But I just really enjoyed it. And like the other hacking minigame on the computers, by the end of the game I was like, I am so sick of this. It just takes too long. It's not that engaging. There's not a lot of strategy to it. It's always the same. But even if the timing lock-picking minigame was always the same, I really enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it, 25 hours in. And I just want to throw to you, like, off the top of your head, do you have a favorite hacking or like lock-picking mini game? Of course, like Elder Scrolls comes to mind. Yeah, like what are your favorites that you think of?
I'm really glad you brought that up. That's something that subconsciously I definitely feel like I do keep track of when I am playing games like that. Even just like throughout my gaming career, just like coming across, like I really appreciate like a good little mini game like that, like especially for hacking or such things.
I feel like it's a very hard thing to make good too, because like one, you don't want them to be too long usually. You don't want them to be like too hard, because it is like not the core gameplay. It's like you don't want to be there forever. but you still want it to be engaging. And for like, usually they're like in open world games where you're spending hundreds of hours, so it's hard to make one that also is fun for that many hours through it.
Elder Scrolls and Fallout, like those would be in my top tier just because like they're very simple, but it's just like how many times you interact with those throughout playing those games. I think my favorite, if I had to pick one right now, would actually be from the Sly Cooper series. I think it's specifically the second game because that's when you can start playing as Bentley. He's like the mastermind on the computer guy, so he's doing a lot of hacking and the hacking in that game, it's kind of like almost like an asteroids type feel to it, but you're like a tank and you kind of go through like levels with when there's just like mobs coming at you and you're just, the idea is you're trying to like get rid of the virus, and yeah, maybe just look up like if you're curious, a little YouTube on the hacking in that game. I just remember every time. Sly 2, it's in Sly 3 as well, but Sly 2 is specifically the one I'm thinking of because I just remember very iconic level that you're just doing a lot of that, and it has like a really fun music that goes with it too. And I just remember like every time I would come across those mini games, like I would just be pumped, like, oh nice, I got to do another one of these little hacking levels.
That looks cute.
Yeah, so that one's fantastic. It's fun. I'm getting like PTSD flashbacks to Outlast Trials. That definitely wouldn't be on my favorite. I hated the hacking in that game. I remember just failing that multiple times. I'm like, Dylan, you're doing the hacking. I can't do this anymore. What else?
Ones are very intentionally designed where it's like they just want it to be slightly frustrating enough that you can't just go through it too quickly. You gotta be freaking out as like, some bad guys coming to kill you. So I feel like they got that down for sure.
In Fallout as well, I would shout out the hacking in that game. It's nothing like too in depth or like complex, but it's just something a little bit different. It makes you like, I feel like as opposed to just moving certain shapes in like a certain area, like you can actually like decipher what it is, so it makes you feel like you're actually solving the puzzle a little bit more. Yeah, man, I feel like I could make like a whole episode about this. Just thinking about like games in the past with their the different hacking mini games that they had. Yeah. But the game I'm gonna bring up today actually has some great hacking mechanics. So I'll shout that out when we get there. But yeah, great question.
It's funny that you brought up like you could do a whole episode about it because I had this thought when I was playing Star Wars Outlaws. I was like, hey, maybe that would be a fun topic. And then I thought about it more. I'm like, I can't think of that many. So like, I don't know if I could do a. I don't know if we.
That's fair. It probably would be too long. Yeah.
In the way that we've done that, for our favorite video game names or best snow levels. Like, I don't know if I could do that for hacking mini games because I just can't think of enough off the top of my head. I mean, there's a reason that like Fallout 3 and New Vegas and 4 and Skyrim like all have the same like lock picking mini game. Right?
Yeah.
It's because it's good. It's fun. It's simple. It's very easy to like. For them to turn up the difficulty as you get to like a very hard lock or an expert lock, and it becomes just like a little bit more finicky. So that one's a classic for sure.
You reminded me of another one, actually. Sorry to cut you off there, but BioShock, I remember really enjoying those ones with the water tubes. It gets very stressful when it's like flowing really fast and you can't find your little piece, but I just remember really enjoying that the first time I played through BioShock.
Yes, I like the BioShock one as well. I think it does suffer a bit from like later on it can take a bit too long.
Yeah.
When you're in like an action heavy sequence of the game, you have to do all the hacking. I think you're right. Like the time element of it is a good stress additive on there. But I think it maybe overstays its welcome a little bit. But I think for me that my favorite is definitely Fallout. I've always loved hacking in those games. Trying to find the connections between the words. It's similar to the Outlaws one of like trying to find. It's like a game of mastermind a little bit. But there's just enough variance in there, finding the duds, finding the brackets, and clicking those out of there. I think that also just the game feel of it is really, really satisfying. So I feel like that would be my favorite. I never was a big fan of Oblivion's lock picking minigame. I don't know if you remember that one, but it's kind of like a horizontal view of like you sticking the lock in the door, and you have to like click up the little golden
I do remember
things,
that. Yeah,
you have to push them up and then click them at the right time. And I don't know, I just found it so challenging and frustrating a lot of the time, especially for like the higher difficulty ones, because if you mess up one of them, then like all of them will pop back down, or at least like if it's a hard lock. And so yeah, I don't know, I like it a little bit, but I just found it a little frustrating. But it was definitely an improvement over Morrowind, where you literally just stab the door over and over again with your lockpick, and it's just a roll of the dice every time. There's no mini game to it. It's the same as combat, which is such a funny thing.
That's hilarious.
Smash the door over and over again with a lockpick. So yeah, those would be, I think, yeah, once again, Fallout is definitely the top dog for me, but I would love to hear anyone else listening to this episode. Let us know in Discord or let us know in the YouTube comments or something what your favorite hacking minigame or lockpicking minigame is, because I'm curious if there's others out there that I'm not remembering at this point in time. And then my last story for Star Wars Outlaws is at one point, Taylor talked about in the review how he had some bugs and glitches. Me and Travis hadn't really had any. By the end of the game, I definitely stumbled upon a few bugs, and one was a little bit scary. So that at one point in the main game, you have to go to a certain Imperial base. You have to break into the Imperial base, sneak in, and go through and do a bunch of different things. So I go up, I'm doing my classic thing. I'm outside, out front in the grass, up on the rocks, scouting, pinging a bunch of enemies, looking for different entrant ways, find a kind of hidden path along the side. So I go that way, sneak in. I'm sneaking around, take out a couple enemies, get inside the building eventually. Sweet, all good. Keep going, take out a bunch of enemies, go through different rooms. I'm disabling cameras. I'm sneaking through vents. I go. And eventually I get through, okay, there's no more enemies in this area. I think I've made it past, the enemy enforcement area. I drop into this room, and it's a strangely empty room. There's a turret on the roof, but the turret's not doing anything. And the room is, mostly empty. I'm like, I feel like there should be enemies here. This feels like a battlefield. But anyway, I walk around. I find an energy door, and it's one where you have to send your little pet Nix through a little hidden vat. He can go pop the button and open the door for you. So I send him to do that. He hits the button, and the door doesn't go anywhere. And I'm like, this does not seem good. I look around for a little bit. I'm like, there's nothing else to interact with this room. I can't leave this room either. So I'm like, okay, something's definitely bugged here. But then I look at my autosaves. No, cool. I have one 2 minutes ago. Load the autosave. It puts me on the other side of the planet. Completely on the other side of the planet. So I'm like, I don't know what the heck this autosave is doing, but it's clearly... And you can't also save when you're in the middle of a base. You have to rely on the autosaves. So I'm like, well, this
Hate
sucks.
that.
But I go back to that base, and weirdly, half the enemies that I killed are still killed, but then half of them are back. So I'm like, okay, well, this will be easier to get through, but it's still kind of weird. Follow my same path, go through, take out some of those enemies, kind of speed run back to where I was, same spot, get to the door, Nix goes through the door, hits the button, door doesn't go down. I'm like, shit, this is a main quest, and this is the only main, at one point in the game, there's kind of 3 main quests, and you can do them whatever order. This is the last one I need to do at this point in the game, so I'm like, I might not be able to finish this game if this is truly bugged out, but I'm like, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to go do something else. So I go do, another 5 hours of random quests. I come back. I think I also at some point I popped up a YouTube video just to make sure that I wasn't doing something wrong, and it's like, oh yeah, when you hit that button, it's supposed to just open. But there was also a cutscene when you enter that room. I never got that cutscene, so I'm like, something was definitely bugged. But anyway, go spend 5 hours elsewhere, come back to the base later, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just never hit the initial trigger of I was at the base because I was so far on the outside of it. So I just went through a totally different path. I went through the left side of the base this time, snuck through a different way. And within a minute, I hit a trigger that was it checked off a box. Okay, you did that part of the mission. You've made it to the base. Now you got to infiltrate inside. And I'm like, man, did I stealth this mission so hard the first time that the game didn't even realize that I was in the enemy base that I was supposed to be in? And I feel like I confirmed it for myself. I was so stealthy. I was such a stealth dog, Kirklin, that the game, the
code could even find
didn't
you.
Even realize that I was in the base that I was supposed to be in. And then, when I finally got through there, it all worked. I got to that point. The cutscene popped up. The door opened. Okay, cool. I was finally able to finish the mission. The game wasn't bugged forever. I was able to finish it, of course. But it's funny, on the exfiltration of the mission, when you're leaving that area, it goes through the area that I entered from. So I think that is it's weird. All these bases are meant to be kind of open. You can enter them wherever you want. But it seems like for whatever reason, that way that I went in was supposed to be the exit, and they didn't think about the fact that someone could enter through there instead. And so that's where the game just totally bugged and could not figure out that I was in this base. So kind of a funny story. I really wasn't that salty about it. It was a fun mission. It was fun to do it a couple times. I was just a little scared when I thought I wouldn't be able to beat the game because of it. But yeah, that was the biggest bug experience I had with the game. But it all worked out in the end, at least.
I feel like that's such a thing of the past for games where you find a way to kind of bypass the checkpoint that activates the next part. I know, like watching certain speedrunners, like
That's what
they
it's all
know how
about.
to
Yeah.
find them, but like in older games, it just seemed like it would happen like
Hmm.
more often, like unintentionally.
Yeah.
But that's a funny experience.
I love when we're watching a speed run and they like clip out of the wall, but then they have to go to like a specific spot in just like the middle of nowhere to like hit the trigger for the cutscene. Like they know where these triggers are, even though there is, it's a completely invisible or box that they have to hit. But that's always my favorite part. Like Alien Isolation, I was watching that speed run recently. Yeah, bug through the wall and then like find a little janky corner where you can activate a cutscene. It's so good.
I was watching. I can't remember if it was Dishonored or a different speed run, or I think it might have been Portal actually. And like it's basically that where they like clipped out, and it's just like the void essentially, and then they
Yeah.
like knew exactly where to land to just like get back into the level to activate like the end of the mission. It was just I don't understand how people do that. I guess it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, speaking of collaborative efforts, if you want to support this podcast and what we're doing here, the best way to do that is to join our Patreon. You can join as a member and just check it out for free. But then eventually, if you decide that what we're putting out there is interesting enough, or you really want that ad-free version, I know those pesky ads. I know they're not fun to listen to, and I'm sorry about that. But it's how we keep the lights on until the Patreon grows to such a monstrosity-based level that we don't need them in there anymore. But until that time, you got to have the ads in there. And that's why Patreon's great. You can get the episodes ad-free. You can get many of them early, sometimes months, or even like a year early, I feel like is our record in terms of how early an episode went up. You can leave a review that helps us grow, that helps us get higher in the search engine feeds. Join our Discord once again. It's a great place to hang out, especially for the Marvel snappers of the world. We're always talking there about the newest cards and the crazy hijinks that we're encountering in that game. And yeah, other than that, just stay tuned to the feeds. We're reviewing all sorts of stuff right now. Penguin starting soon. We're doing Rings of Power right now. We just did a review for Beetlejuice last week. So lots going on in the feeds. It's a good time. A lot of big things coming out in the fall. So it should be a good fall season. And how about with that, we'll throw to the standard ads. We'll be right back for more video game discussion. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Kirkland, I have one more game I'm going to quickly shout out here, and then you can go. So there was a Nintendo Direct a couple weeks ago. We didn't talk about it on Sidequest because we did Star Wars Outlaws. That was the main topic last week. And truthfully, there was not a ton in there to really break down. The one thing that is relevant for us, Kirkland, is that they announced the Sea of Stars DLC, or I think they had announced it prior, but they finally showed it off. So they showed that there's a new playable character, and it looks like it's like a separate area. I don't know if it's like its own little mini open world area that you go and check out, but it seems like it's kind of totally separate. So maybe that means you can kind of do it during the main story, after the main story, just kind of whenever you want. I think that's coming out next year, so I'm looking pretty forward to that. And it looks, it doesn't look like there's anything too crazy other than just like new characters, new story, and all that's all I would really want. But overall, it doesn't look too insane, but that's cool. Shouts to that. But the other thing that was announced here was Castlevania Dominus Collection, which is a collection of all the Castlevania games that came on the Nintendo DS. I did not buy that, but it did prompt me that, oh yeah, I bought the Castlevania Advance Collection, which is all the Game Boy Advance games, and I just like didn't play it a whole lot. So instead, last week I jumped into that game, which I've had and barely played, and I jumped back in there. So I played the first one on there. I forget the name of it. And I think that's why I kind of bounced off, because the first one I played in the collection, like the first one that pops up, I just wasn't doing it for me. I played for like an hour or two. It wasn't really that interesting. Like the combat wasn't that great. The maps were kind of boring. The enemies were kind of boring. And so that's, I think, why I just kind of opted out. But I started up the next one, which is Harmony of Dissonance, which is a game I have never played before. And Castlevania for me, like I've played like 3 or 4 of them in my life, and I've never beat any of them. And I've not made it very far. I don't think it's ever really clicked for me. But for the first time, I feel like it is clicking a little bit. Like I'm really enjoying this game. I'm a couple hours in. And, for the most part, it is pretty standard castle or, Metroidvania affair where you got this big map, kind of grid view, and you're kind of going around. Oh, you run into a wall. Okay, go look for another direction eventually. Get a double jump, and then you can go get to this new area. All that classic Metroidvania stuff. But I think for me, the things that are really standing out with this one so far are, one is the character moveset is really fun and weird. Like you have the classic chain whip sort of attack in this, just like Simon and Richter have in Smash Bros. But you also have like a dash kind of like a wave dash where you just slide forward or slide backwards. But what I like about it doesn't turn your character around, so you can like be facing forwards and then like use that dash backwards and then throw out a chain. You can like kind of cancel your dash at any point, and it makes the movement like really fun. Like you're just kind of slipping and sliding around and like spacing these attacks. You have a very long range attack. You have the dash, and so like getting that perfect spacing of your attacks mixed with like jumps in there is a really fun combat system that I'm really into. Like it's pretty basic in terms of how many buttons you have, but I really like how precise it is. So that's standing out to me. I think maybe my favorite part about it is that this game is so freaking weird and goofy and silly. I feel like I've always associated Castlevania to be like really dark and gritty, and it's about like demons and vampires and stuff. But like the enemies in this game are so goofy looking and very colorful. Like they remind me, like some of them remind me of like Beetlejuice characters. Some of them are reminding me of like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like just some of the weird janky old Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And so I just love like that silliness factor to it. And then even on top of that, like just in this recent section I made it to, I'm just going around and I'm picking up like a chair, a side table, a chandelier. Like I'm picking up like random furniture items. I'm like, what are these collectibles? Like, they don't do anything for my moveset. Like, what are we doing over here? And then I made it to some random room, and the character, his name is Just, that you play as. He's like, this is an interesting room, but it's not very tastefully decorated. And so he just, like, slaps down all this furniture. So, like, in the middle of this Castlevania game, like, randomly decorating this one room. There's no interactions in the room. I can't, like, sit in this chair, or, like, this isn't, like, a save room or anything. It's just the most random location that I'm setting up with furniture. So I don't know what's going on, but I just love how kind of stupid and campy and silly and like over the top it is. It like fits perfectly somehow with like the really dark themes that are going on. So yeah, really enjoying it. There's a lot of confusing things in it. Like whenever I pick an item, I really have no idea what it does, and it's hard to find out what it does in game, even though there's all sorts of menus. You're picking up hearts in this game, but they don't heal you. Like they add some other meter, but it's like not your mana meter. It's I googled it and I still don't understand what the heck I'm doing by collecting these hearts. It makes no sense to me. And then I think maybe the coolest part is like most Castlevania or Metroidvania games, it's like some huge sprawling map and you're slowly uncovering it, getting new areas. But this one seems like it's more constrained. It's one smaller map, but there's different versions to it. Like you'll go through a portal and now like it's the same map layout, but like the backgrounds have changed and like the enemies are a little bit different. And so there's like the A castle, there's the B castle, and then there's the A plus B castle. And I'm still early on enough that I don't really understand exactly what that's going to mean, but I think later on it's going to all click and connect in some interesting way. And when I finally understand it of how I'm going to navigate this castle and like solve the puzzles of it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of early on, but I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm just kind of happy that I kind of have a Castlevania game that I'm actually really into, and I hope it sticks for the rest of the runtime because yeah, it's always been one of those series on the backlog or one I've dabbled in, but yeah, just never like found any love in it, and I'm kind of getting there. So it feels pretty good. It's fun so far.
Nice, that's awesome. I don't think I've ever actually played a Castlevania game. I feel like at one point I played Ghouls and Goblins and Ghouls or something like that, and I just thought it was Castlevania. But no, that was my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm knowledgeable enough to give you a recommendation yet, but this one is certainly good. Once again, that's Harmony of Dissonance.
Nice.
But yeah, it's cool that they have an advanced collection, the DS collection. There's a lot of like you can save through like a metagame menu, so you can save outside of just having to get to a save room in game, which is cool. You can rewind just like Nintendo Switch Online, which I'm abusing the hell out of that to make it through this game without having to reset a million times.
Nice.
And there's some other like bonus features in there too. So it seems like a pretty solid collection, considering Konami's like usually a pretty lazy company these days and not doing a whole lot, but like these collections seem to be pretty solid. And you know me, I'm just a huge Game Boy Advance fan, so I'll take any chance to play some of these games that I never got around to. So yeah, that is what I have been playing lately. Really just Star Wars and Castlevania, and then of course Marvel Snap, which we'll talk about later. But Kirklin, what have you been playing lately?
Yeah, I got a pretty decent sized game to talk about here today. I jumped into just a beautiful game. It's called Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Right on.
Yeah. Have you ever played Ratchet and Clank? Any of the games?
Never played a Ratchet and Clank. I've never played a Sly Cooper game. I am those early PlayStation mascots, like Played some Spyro and Crash, but that's about it. It's definitely a blind spot for me.
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank. It's funny. I first experienced it around the time that I like first got into Sly Cooper as well, like just in that PS2 era. I never had a PS2, but my cousin did, so we always played those PlayStation games together. Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter, that was in that vein as well. So I kind of just see those three games as like real core, like early PlayStation memories in my mind. And Ratchet and Clank was one. I think I played maybe 2 games in the past. The one I remember the most is the third game, I believe it was. It's called Up Your Arsenal. And then the second one was, I forget what the second one was, but I mostly just played that third game. And I don't know, like, I didn't, like, I don't really remember the story too well. I just remember they were really fun games. Like, they just had really fun gadgets and like tons of different weapons and arsenal. That I just remember shooting things, and it was just fun to get through. And the characters were witty. And so playing, I mean, there's been many games out since then. There, like, I just kind of pulled up the list of how many there were, and there's quite a few that I didn't even really know about.
Like
There's
PSP ones in there. You know?
Yeah, like there's one called like Going Mobile, which is like a mobile game, which is crazy to me. But yeah, no,
made by Insomniac still.
I'm not too sure. I didn't see what the developer was on that one, but yeah. So for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I was just so blown away by like, this is such a fucking beautiful game, man. Like this came out in 2021. Like I believe it was for PS5, and it just looks like such a beautiful game. And I feel like I just haven't really been playing like the big PlayStation exclusive like AAA titles in a while, and I just kind of like forget how beautiful these games can look. And it looks beautiful. All the characters are like so well written. I really like all the characters. The soundtrack is just phenomenal. And like while playing it, I just like, it like took me back to playing the PS2 Ratchet and Clanks. Honestly, like it's just such a fun game to play with all the different gadgets that you get. All of the combat is like really smooth to like switch through your different weapons and throw in your melee attacks with your gun effects. And there's these little like tokens that enemies drops. It's basically your currency in the world, and it's just so like satisfying collecting it, because it reminds me of like the Lego games when you just pick up like all the pieces, and they just like, you know, that audio effect that they just like zoom to you, and it's just like clunk, 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 clunk.
When you like pull in all the ability orbs kind of thing. Yeah.
It's very much the same feeling, and this game is pretty cool. You can actually like customize what the tokens are. Like you can switch them to rupees from like Legend of Zelda, which is crazy to me. Like, and
like IP infringement.
No, it just says rupee, and it's like the rupees from Legend of Zelda, which is hilarious.
That's just Indian currency, you know? Like
yeah, exactly.
Zelda, the IP to rupees, yeah.
There's a couple other ones. I just turned on the rupees for a little bit, but I ended up switching it back to what the vanilla one was, just because it's, I don't know, it's just very nostalgic to me, because it's totally the same feel there. And yeah, for being like really, I don't know how much of like a sequel this game really is. It's not like events happen and then it's like continuing on. Like this game just starts, there's like a parade going on, and then bad guys come, and it just goes on with that. So like there's certain characters that we're interacting with that I don't really know of, but like for my experience, this kind of being a standalone, I think it's totally acceptable jumping in this game without any knowledge of any of the other games. It's just super fun. I think I'm about 6 or 7 hours in, and I looked it up, and it says that the game's only like 11 or so hours for the main story, which is kind of sad to me, because I feel like I am really early on, but it's also just, I feel like the game is also just going really fast because I'm just cruising through it. Like I'm just really wanting to I don't know, just keep adventuring and figuring out like each character's story, because the main characters are of course Ratchet and Clank, and the big one with this is the Rift Apart. There's some dimensional travel in this game, and on, if you've seen the cover, there's a photo of Ratchet, which is like the orange guy, and then there's Rivet, which is the female. She's like a little bit blue or purple, and the idea is they're like the last of the Lombaxes. That's their race, but they're basically like the dimensional mirror of each other, so they're kind of the same character but like not. And it's cool because you do play as both of them throughout the game, and there is kind of a little RPG element to it where you're like unlocking weapons and upgrading them. And if you upgrade something for like Ratchet, they basically share all the same weaponry and they share all the same upgrades, and it kind of makes sense because they're supposed to be like the exact mirror amongst like the different dimensions. And
Are they ever on screen at the same time, or is it kind of like an alternate dimension situation?
Yes, they do interact. They are on screen at the same time. Not really minor spoilers, just like a little hint of what the story is Clank feels bad that Ratchet is like the last Lombax, so he makes this. It's called a Dimensionator. This game has such great weapon names. Oh man, I love it so much. But he makes the Dimensionator, which basically just opens portals to another dimension to go find the other Lombaxes out there in the universe, and bad things happen, and then portals just open up, and they kind of get lost in the different dimensions. And at first, it's like Rivet gets paired up with Clank, which is kind of fun because Clank gets separated from Ratchet, so then he's paired up with Rivet, and then Ratchet finds like an almost different Clank-like type character to have on his back with him. And yeah, I just really love the world. I really love just the visuals. Like, it's just such a fantastic game that I think really anyone should try on PlayStation. Like, it's just such a fantastic game, and really makes me want to jump into more of the like PlayStation exclusive games that I just really haven't jumped into. Like God of War's on that list, Horizon Zero Dawn's on that list. Like there's just a lot of these like AAA PlayStation games that I just really haven't dabbled in. And after playing this, I'm like, this is quality. I being a Sony boy, I really got to start playing more of these exclusive games, because I know that they're up to that quality. But just playing this one, it definitely brought back some nostalgia, but also just going forward, like I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on future Ratchet and Clank games, because this is just such a fun experience.
Yeah, man, I feel like with what you're saying about this, I feel like you should pick up Astrobot. I feel like that would be exactly
it looks really similar, yeah.
There aren't a lot of the Sony first-party studios making games like this these days.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that third-person, really dark and gritty, story-focused
Totally, yeah.
action stuff. And so I feel like there aren't a ton of those platformers anymore. But that game, yeah, I mean, the trailers for that game were always so wild. Like, I mean, it was kind of like the tech demo show-off for like what the PS5 could do, right? But it also turned that into, okay, what would that mean for our story and the characters? I think it's cool that they went the extra mile instead of just throwing portals in there for no reason. And came up with some whole story around it. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, there's this one level that's really, really cool. You go to like a mining planet because you're trying to find like a certain material, but you get there and the planet's just completely like exploded. It's like, okay, well, we're not going to get that. But then you find these little dimensional crystals that you can hit, and then it like takes you to another dimension of that planet. So throughout the level, you keep hitting these crystals, so it switches the entire map to being like a destroyed version and then like a non-destroyed version. It's really cool the way that
Dishonored too.
yeah, exactly. The
manner,
yeah. So I'm just, I feel like I'm really blown away, and because it is just so fun and engaging, that's where it's like, oh, are you telling me I'm already halfway through the game? Like I still feel like there's so much left to explore. But yeah, it's really, really fantastic. And oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say about the little hacking mini game. You get this a little robot. It's called Glitch, and you don't do it often, but there's a couple little like hacking situations you have to do. So you throw Glitch into the computer, and then you play as Glitch, and it's kind of like a little mini tank game where you're like
videos of that. Yeah.
You're like crawling around, and gravity's kind of different, so you can like climb on walls and roofs, so like it kind of messes with your perspective sometimes. But the idea is you're just trying to like get rid of the virus, similar to how I was describing the Sly Cooper hacking. But it's really fun. It's some of them are a little bit more challenging than others, but yeah, I just wanted to shout it out because you brought up the hacking the hacking tier systems. But yeah, no, this game is super fantastic, and definitely gonna be beating it here pretty soon, just because I'm powering through it really fast. And yeah, it's fantastic.
Did it hit PS Plus, or did you buy it or borrow it? Or?
It was on the collection for like a while. I can't remember if it was a monthly game. I know it's also like the PlayStation catalog if you subscribe to that, which I do. So I had it kind of on my radar, because I used to, like, when it came out, I was working with someone that was really, really excited for it and was telling me all about it. And it's like, yeah, it looks beautiful. Like, it definitely, like, visually it looks amazing. But till you actually jump in there and like grab the joystick, and it's funny just thinking back to even the other games that I was mentioning that kind of remind me of this era of PlayStation, which is like Sly Cooper, Jack and Daxter, and this game, Ratchet and Clank, because I feel like they have their main genre, what the game is. Like, this one is a third-person shooter, whatever, action adventure, whatever the hell you'd say it. But I feel like amongst all these games, there's like certain elements of mini games to it. I'm not saying it's like a Mario Party type level of mini games, but there's just a lot of different things that you do in these games. Sly Cooper had that, Jack and Daxter had that, Ratchet and Clank has that, and I kind of forgot about that until I was going through this one. It's just like all these little things just really add up to an overall enjoyment or an overall enjoyable experience, like going through a story game like this. And I don't know, I feel like I see this genre like a lot different now after like recently going through it, and makes me just want to jump into them more. And yeah, it's so good though. Definitely recommend it to you if it ever comes across your way.
Yeah, I mean, it always looked great, and it was just since it was a PS5 exclusive, it was like, well, I'm definitely not able
Yeah.
to.
It's on
Play
Steam
this.
right now, which kind of surprised me.
Oh, I guess it is over there now, hey?
Yeah.
Definitely would explode my computer, but at some point I will definitely pick it up. Yeah, so I'm kind of surprised on the collection. Like, I guess it's 4 years old now, but it still feels like kind of like a newer game for them, like
Yeah.
a first party game. So I am surprised to see it appearing on that collection soon. But looking at the other studios, because I feel like Insomniac, just their output is insane, and I could definitely see them doing another one of those Ratchet and Clank games in the next few years. But when we look over at Naughty Dog, who are the makers of Jack and Daxter, and then Sly Cooper was
Sucker Punch,
right?
yeah.
Who are now on Ghost of Tsushima. Like I don't see either of those studios working on those IP. Not that they
Yeah.
could hand them off to someone else. And I think that would be more likely. But I think it is so important for a console like a PS5 or like a Sony to have a mix, a variety of games, and that's why I think Astrobot is such a big win. Not because it appears to be like the coolest game ever, like on par with Mario Odyssey and stuff, but also it's like it's a different type of market, different age rate that are going for, and that's the kind of thing
Mhm.
where like a kid will play that game and then like love it and then be a PlayStation fan and then buy a PlayStation 20 years from now. You know, like they got to think
Totally.
about that stuff. If they're just making games for the older audiences, they're not going to like. I don't know. You want to make sure you're always hitting those cycles, and so I feel like they've definitely ignored that in the PS4 era for sure. I mean, there was still a Ratchet and Clank that came out then, and I don't know. I feel like I don't know if it maybe just wasn't as highlighted as much as Rift Apart was, because Rift Apart was I guess it wasn't a launch day first party game, but it was like the launch window sort of situation. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think a Naughty Dog or a Sucker Punch, like, I guess when, or do you think they'd ever go back to their kind of platform mascot character games?
Yeah, I think
Or do you even want them to? Or are you happy with what those studios are doing? You want someone else to pick up that?
I it's tough because I do love what they're doing now. But their earlier titles, as we just mentioned, like those are some of my earliest like foundation PlayStation memory games. So I have a lot of nostalgia for them, and like we brought up there, how it is important to not just tend to the older audience, but you also have to go forward, because if I didn't have those Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank experiences, like maybe I wouldn't have been a PlayStation guy. Like just being loyal to the system in that regard. But for Sucker Punch, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to like one day get another Sly Cooper game. They did, I think it was called Thieves in Time. That was a PS4 game. So that one came out like much later than the other games, because I believe all the other ones were PS2. So then PS3 came around. They had remastered them, and that's when I picked them up because I fucking love those games. But yeah, then they later came out with Thieves of Time, and I don't really remember too much of it. Like I played a little bit of the game, but for some reason I never really played it through all the way. But I don't think it really did too well. But that one's probably my favorite out of the three, but like honestly, it's probably the least popular out of all of the three. I would imagine.
I mean, that's not even like that many games, because I feel like Spyro had like 5 games before the PS2 came out. I'm making up that number, but there was Game Boy Advance games. There was it wasn't a PlayStation exclusive, so that made it easier to put it all in sorts of different places. But yeah, I feel like Sly of those ones was probably the smaller. But even like, how many Jack and Daxter games was there back then?
There was a couple like random subgenre ones.
And
like
that
I know,
was like a PSP game or something too.
yeah, I remember they did like with Jack's 3 or Jak 3, sorry, not Jack's. They had like racing elements, and then they came out with like a racing standalone game
Jak
with
X
it.
Combat Racing. I don't.
Yeah,
think I've ever
Combat
heard of that
Racing.
game
Yeah,
before. Wow.
which the racing in the third game was fantastic. That that third game was
cool.
that was top tier. That was a top tier game.
Apparently, they had just a game called Daxter. So they did just a Daxter solo adventure.
Interesting. That's funny. I didn't know that.
Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier.
Yeah.
And that one wasn't even made by Naughty Dog anymore. Like, I don't even know what ones they made. I guess they maybe just made the first couple.
First 3 probably.
Yeah, it looks like that's the case. And even the racing game was made by Naughty Dog, which is funny to look at.
Yeah,
but after that, it seems like other studios were taking over that.
It would make sense. I feel like it came out around the time of the third game, so they probably just like had the mechanics like or already prepped, so then they can just.
But man, I would love to see what a 2025 like Naughty Dog Jak and Daxter
dude
would look like. That'd be like the
that
highest
could
budget like platform fight of all time.
That honestly, that could like game of the year potential, especially like just going through Ratchet and Clank, like Rift Apart, what they built in that world and like translate over to the Jak and Daxter realm, because I feel like Jak and Daxter is like much darker as well. It's funny, the first game, it really isn't dark like at all. Like it's very whimsical. But the second game, that's where they introduce like guns and cars, and it's like a big city. It's almost like fucking GTA to a certain level. And then the third game is even darker than that. And I just feel like the world building that they did in that game is just so next level. So like it's funny just talking about those 3. I feel like Sly Cooper's my favorite, and then Jak would probably be like a strong second, and then Ratchet and Clank would be third. But after playing through this one now, it's like, damn, maybe I was putting Ratchet and Clank too low in my rankings. This is fantastic.
Ratchet and Clank has like, 10 times as many games as those.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like there's way more of those games that exist. So I feel like even just in the general eye, it's probably more people have played a Ratchet and Clank than they have those other series, I guess.
Yeah. So I kind of beat around the bush on your question, but I honestly, I feel like there's very good possibility that one day, like, all of these could see the light of day again, just because they are, Sly Cooper probably the lowest chance, but for Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, I don't know, I'd maybe do a little personal size pizza bet that we'd see another one of those games in our lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should have at least one of these types of games a year. I don't know if that's asking too much if they're releasing I think they kind of aim for that release every quarter, like a big release every quarter, and then fill it in with like the Stellar Blades or the Rise of the Ronins, like to Pacific Drives, like fill in the gaps with those kind of things. So I don't know if maybe that's too much to ask, but like maybe every 2 years we could get something like this, and it kind of rotates where it's not just Insomniac having to carry the torch. But I really hope Astrobot sells a lot. I've never played any of those games. I don't really care about the character, but I just think that game looks awesome, and I just hope it sells 1 million trillion copies, and we get more of those kind of things. Because like honestly, that's like jumped up my list of when I finally get that PS5. I feel like Astrobot seems like a day one purchase for me now. Yeah, that and like Returnal have still always been like, when I finally get that system,
Returnal.
I'm probably gonna buy it for Death Stranding 2. But then like, what am I gonna buy the same day? And it's like, not many games, but those ones for sure really stand out to me. They just look so freaking fun.
It's funny you brought up Returnal, because I feel like in certain combat sequences, this game feels like Returnal sometimes, which just like how fluid the movement is. It like Returnal's faster, I would say, for sure. But like there's like iframes in this game, like you could be dodged. Like that's what's so crazy. You're like shooting, you're dodging, you're using melee, you're throwing your melee weapon while you're shooting, while you're switching weapons, while you're throwing grenades. Like there's just so much that you can be doing at a time, kind of like how Nier Automata like kind of plays as well. Like there's just a lot of ways to kill shit in this game. And it's really fun because of that. Like it's just fun to use all the tools at your disposal, and there is a lot of tools at your disposal. There's certain weapons I haven't even used yet because I just haven't unlocked them, because I'm just kind of focusing in other realms, because you get like your weapon wheel of course, but like mine's full right now and I haven't even gotten all the weapons, so like I don't even know if you have to swap them out or something like that. But I do like kind of how the upgrade system works. It's not the most crazy in-depth one I've ever seen before, but you do have to kind of like, you level up your weapons, and then it allows you to like upgrade certain. It's like a tree, but not really like a tree, because you just kind of like throw points into it, and then they're like little upgrades, and then once you max it out, obviously like it feels like it hits a lot harder. So you kind of invest them in the weapons that you are using the most, and then kind of go that way. But I don't know, it's something fun for me. It's not like it's trying to be too much. Like it just kind of, okay, this is a little bit more of an upgrade system for your weapons as opposed to just getting them fully fleshed out like at the get go. But it doesn't take too much investment to really max them out, which is nice. So I like the way that it works.
Yeah, the one that always stood out to me in the trailers, well, I don't know if it's a gun or an upgrade for a different gun, but it's the one where it's essentially like a freeze ray, but it's contextualized as like an ivy thing, like it grows ivy out of enemies and freezes them in their spot.
Got that one more recently.
Visually is just the coolest thing ever, and I feel like I could use that a million times and not get bored of watching it just take over these enemies.
Yeah, no, I love the array of weapons. That was like that was probably the thing that stood out the most to me, like playing the older games, was they had a liquid nitrogen gun that I just remember was the coolest thing ever. It was almost like a super soaker, but it just like froze enemies. And then they had a complete opposite version, which was like the same effect, but it was a lava gun. So you instead of shooting a stream of liquid nitrogen, you're shooting a stream of lava. And in this one, yeah, the one that you're kind of showcasing, it's almost like a Groot type ability where you just kind of turn them into trees. And a lot of the weapons can like kind of combo together like really, really well. One of my favorites, I don't know, I think it's just called like the ricochet gun or something like that. But you shoot an enemy and then like whoever you kind of snipe. It's funny you brought up Sea of Stars earlier. It kind of reminded me of the Sea of Stars ability of the female character that can like bounce her thing. Right. Like it's if you time your attacks, the moon bounce. It's kind of the similar vein where you shoot someone and then a bullet will like bounce in the air, and then if you time it right, it'll like hit them again, and you can just kind of keep like chaining it up to a certain amount of times. And then of course, like depending on how much you've upgraded it, it'll bounce more. And then if you upgrade it even further, it'll be like the timing window will be easier to hit, so you can just kind of like really spam it. And like I mostly use it on like bigger single target enemies because there's just so much enemies at a time. Sometimes it's kind of hard to use single target damage in those instances. Like you just kind of want to be using more of your big explosion AoE type weapons. But I like the variety, I guess, of your arsenal that you have, because there's kind of stuff for every situation. And I just love the wrench. The wrench is just such a...
Name a game with a bad wrench in it.
I know, right? I was just going to say that. Like Prey, Half-Life, like all of those games, yeah. But this one definitely stands out.
Weapon. That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely, another top 10 list ranking episode I've always wanted to do is top 10 best video game weapons. So I feel like it sounds like Ratchet and Clank would definitely have a few contenders in that.
Absolutely.
List.
Yeah.
Definitely have to put that on when there's another slow news week, we'll put that one in the rotation. That'll be a fun discussion to have. Cool. That's awesome. I love you've been hitting me so many fun surprise games. I feel like this year or just in general. So it's always a good time to hear.
Gotta make it exciting, Yeah. Can't always be boring.
How about let's just take one last quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. This might be a quick segment. I'm not sure. But, as we tend to do, me and Kirklin here have a little monthly Marvel Snap discussion, update, that sort of thing. So we're into the new month now, which is the Spider-Man, what is it even called? Spider-Verse? No, it's not Spider-Verse. I don't even know what it's called.
I'm pulling up the app right now. I'll let you know.
It's Spider-Man something or other, where the Seasons Pass card is Symbiote Spider-Man, and then we got a bunch of like...
The Amazing Spider Season. There you go.
The Amazing Spider Season. And then we have a bunch of variant-type characters coming in, and Madam Web's jumping in there. Funny how she didn't get a month when her movie came out, but she's getting a character card in there now. But I know you're a huge Spidey guy, so is this another Seasons Pass that you have picked up, or are you holding off? Where are you at with this month?
I actually chose to hold off for this one. I was really on the fence. I like convinced myself I was going to get it before I even saw what the Season Pass was, just because of the Spidey theme. Yeah. And I must say, like, I was a little bit disappointed with it. I know Scarlet Spider is coming, but I thought he was already in this Season's Pass. I think it's at the end of the month.
End of the month.
Yeah.
One of this month. And then next month is a Venom-based season, it's looking like. So maybe that's where you can shine, because I know your Venom characters as well.
I the next couple ones I might be getting, because I did end up getting last season's, of course. That was the Kate Bishop one, and then I don't know, like I was on the fence because the symbiote spider does look pretty sweet, but I don't really have a lot of like on reveal focused decks just because like I still don't have Wong, which I feel like is such
Oh
a
yeah.
staple to on reveal
Or
decks. And
Grandmaster probably. I feel like
I
those are
have
two.
Grandmaster
Oh, you actually
actually.
do? Okay, I don't have him yet. That's always funny how that works out. But yeah,
That was a
Wong,
random
that's
one I
crazy that
got.
you don't have him yet.
I know, and that like I really want to get Wong. So, but before I like fully commit to on reveals, because I feel like I could have one that works, but I just feel like there's such potential that I'm missing out on
Yeah.
that. So I'm like, why even wait on that? But
Yeah.
a card that I was looking for a very long time, which I don't even know if it's a very meta deck, but I finally got it. It popped up at my token shop. Is Silk. I've been
Okay.
trying to get
Yeah.
Silk for so long, and I finally got Silk.
Nice.
Just had enough tokens for it too, so that made me really happy. And another Spidey character that I ended up finally getting, which I really wanted to get for a long time, was Ghost Spider. So those are two
Right on.
big
Yeah. She's
spider
essential for
ladies.
any move deck.
Yeah,
Silk's just like for a 2-drop in a move deck is just so strong, and
super
the
strong.
randomness, of course, but like even just having 5 power on her own, she can hold her own, power up Craven a few times,
Yeah,
and just have some fun with her. So those are two really great additions for sure.
and like I feel like I never really knew what Silk was. I just like really wanted that card because I starting to like read more about her character in the comic book. So I just like was invested in that character, and I never realized that she's just it's very chaotic. And anytime a character gets placed or a card gets placed there, sorry, like she just moves. But she's a 2/5, which is crazy to me. Like I feel like
Yeah.
that's really strong. And the fact that she's not a one, just fuck Killmonger. Killmonger has been destroying me
Yes.
lately. I do have Kyra, however you
Yeah.
say her name. But I don't know. I feel like there's times it's like, yeah, no, they're not gonna drop a Killmonger and then turn 6 they drop a Killmonger and it wipes out my entire plan. That was my Ultron deck that I have, which I still think is very strong, but that can get hard counter very hard by it.
Yeah, you
But
gotta
no,
hope that you don't have priority so that Killmonger can't stop you on turn 6 with an Ultron. But that's having to wait for the right turn orders for everything.
yeah, and then I guess my last thing I'll say on my little quick update here is I really banked out well on the what do you call them, the spotlight cache, I guess,
Yeah,
for
your
for
keys.
this last one. I dropped 4 keys on it, but I got everything I wanted. I got Mockingbird, I got US Agent, I got Silver Sable, and then I ended up getting,
Yeah, who'd you get as your bonus?
who did I get as my bonus? I can't remember now. I'll probably find it as we keep talking, but I made a deck with that one, which I found was very strong because I really wanted to get Mockingbird because of
She's
like
so
I
good.
I
Yeah.
acquired Kate Bishop and she goes really well
Oh
with Kate
yeah.
Bishop.
Big fan.
So that deck that I was using for that one was Ant-Man, Silver Sable, Nico, which just shouts out to Nico. Nico's so
He's so
fantastic.
good.
Squirrel Girl, Dazzler, Hawkeye K Bishop, U.S. Agent, which U.S. Agent's fantastic as well, Marvel Boy, and then I got Kyra to defend my ones and sixes,
Yes.
Kazar, Blue Marvel, and Mockingbird, and that's been like a really solid deck. Kind of got bored with it, so then I made my different one once I got my Silk and Ghost Spider, which this one is Ghost Spider, Human Torch, Iron Fist, Dagger, Craven, Doctor Strange, Cloak, Silk, Vulture, Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2099, and Heimdall. I wanted to have a lot more
Yeah.
Spider-Man characters in there, so I threw 2099 in there, and what a great card. I don't use them enough.
Yeah, I love that all the spider characters are kind of synergized as move characters. It
Yeah.
makes so much sense thematically, but then that you can pair them together is really fun too. So.
Yeah, so that's kind of been the two that I've been running right now.
But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
and it's
I
been
mean,
good.
jumping in on that, this week because I didn't have U.S. Agent either, or obviously Silver Sable's the new card. She's just solid, Like it's one of those ones, kind of like Iceman, who is one of those cards that you'll never really know how much of an impact he will have because you're hitting someone's card and then they often just won't play that card. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what you hit and you don't know how much you really screwed them over. But it's one of those ones you just have to trust that like whenever I get hit by Iceman, I'm super salty and it's like, oh, it screwed up my curve now. Like I'm
Yeah.
ruined. And so I feel like it's kind of the same thing with Silver Sable. You might a lot of the time just not see the card that it hit, so it feels like, oh, I'm not like that -2 powers and hitting them.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I don't know, maybe that was a really awesome pick I hit, and it's only costing me 1 card to do that. And then
Mm-hmm.
he makes her a 1/3, which is like above the average for a 1 cost. So she's super solid and works really well in those kind of decks. And that's what I've been playing a lot of lately is just junk deck in general, throwing a bunch of crap on my opponent's side, and then weakening it with Toxic and other like Man Thing. And U.S. Agent, man, like that is a card that when he came out, I was like, I like the ability. He's kind of the opposite of Man Thing, hitting the higher cost cards, but his stats like aren't great. I didn't have many keys at the time. And then they like buffed him like a week after because like, no one picked him up. And I was like, damn it, I would have got him if he had this stat line. Like it seems a lot better. And so I'm glad that I think this is like the first time he's been in a spotlight since, you know, that happened when he came out in like a few months ago, whatever it was. So yeah, really happy that I have him now because he just fits perfectly in there. And when I love dropping him and then later throwing a Hobgoblin in that lane to make the Hobgoblin a -12 for my opponent. It just feels so freaking good. And then if you can get lucky and get even like 1 or 2 hits with him, it's like -4 is a lot of minus power, especially for a 2-cost who's like still is a 2/3. Like he holds his own. Like he's really, really good. So I've been having a lot of fun kind of really completing that deck that I've had for a while, but now like had a couple new pieces to it that are really strong.
I never thought about the goblin. I've honestly never used the goblins ever in my runs. I imagine both Hobgoblin and Green Goblin. But I've been having a lot of fun and I guess seeing the potential of like throwing the negative cards on your opponent because of Kate Bishop and her acid arrows. Like those are actually really fun to use, especially if you time it like perfectly and you see that they're going for like their last, like their 4th slot being like an on reveal to like destroy their whole deck or sorry, their whole area. And then you just fill it with like an acid arrow or something.
You fill the 4th slot, it feels so good.
And then they just drop like an emote, like they're just like pissed off. That's always great. But I looked up, so Super Giant was the last one that I got. And my bonus,
I don't
which
think I've seen her played in months. She's a very weird card that I don't even know how I feel about her, but
yeah,
kind of a weird one.
Like, you know what her card does? Like it's an on reveal. All cards played next turn don't reveal until the game ends, which is like Invisible Woman. Like I never use. Like I don't really use a lot of that. So I was kind of disappointed
in it. I guess
in
you're also trying to use like that one. How she differs from Invisible Woman is that you can screw with your opponent in that way too. You can throw off the order of events for them, right? But I don't know. It's just not that exciting. And like with her stat line too, it feels very expensive. Especially because it's like only for that one turn and not like for the rest of the game. So I don't know. Not the most exciting, but at least it's one you didn't have before and now
exactly.
do. So maybe they'll change her and she'll be better in the future, or maybe you'll just find some cool way to use her since she's a more niche pick too. So
right. Yeah, the one that I wanted out of, I mean, I was happy with this entire cache. Obviously, I didn't have any of these cards before, but the one I really wanted was Mockingbird, and of course, that was the 4th one that I opened. But I was really happy with Silver Sable, U.S. Agent, but then Super Giant popped up. I'm like, what? What is this? I'm like, I better guaranteed get Mockingbird, but I did, so that was nice.
Honestly, I mean, even off the top of my head, like Super Giant could be a potential Killmonger counter if you can play it and delay your opponent's Killmonger, and then you can get a Kiara out in time. Or
oh yeah, that's a good point.
Your own 1 costs to be on the board, or delaying your Ultron or something like that. So
right.
I don't know. It might be a bit of a harebrained scheme, but it could be worth a try. Could be interesting. It's just once again, she's very expensive to do a plan like that. Like I don't know how many games that would really save you on when you can just play a Kiara instead and be happy and safe. So I don't know. Kind of interesting situation. But I want to ask you too, because now that the previous month, the Young Avengers season is over, Kate Bishop is now in the token shop, and I've been trying to find her in there and at least lock her to make that decision if I want to spend the tokens on her, because I have like 20,000 tokens saved up. I haven't bought anything in a long time, and I really want her. And so how do you feel about her now that you've been playing with her for a month? Is she worth the pickup? Like seems so versatile and fun for me, and like fits in a lot of decks. So I'm thinking I'm picking her up as soon as I see her.
I would say yes, especially because you like Nico so much. I think she is similar in the sense that she can kind of fit a lot of different avenues. And like I've thrown her in a couple of destroy decks just to kind of try out, and it works really well. I've thrown her in like a move deck, and it works there as well. So. Yeah, exactly. And now, of course, that I have Mockingbird, like I've been using her a lot more and having more success with it. So yeah, I think initially she came out. I used her a lot just because I thought it was a fun, unique card, but I didn't have like the best stuff to really go with her. That's where I was kind of just like trying to find her best place. But then I got Mockingbird, and it's like, okay, I found her home. And but yeah, I definitely would recommend her just because she is very versatile in that sense. It is kind of dice rolly. Like you can get your hopes up, like wanting one of the arrows, and then you get one of the other ones, but
Yeah.
I find it's never a situation that it like ruins my entire plan. It just kind of makes the plan better if it does go that way, because all of the arrows work well. Like even the grapple arrow, that's of course like her move one. There's times when maybe I don't even want to use it to move something, but like it's still a 1/3. Like it is still pretty strong. And then if I
It's a
have Daz,
1/3? Oh my god.
yeah.
That's actually
And then if I
pretty
have
decent.
like Kazar or like whoever, right?
Yeah.
Just stuff to fill and like boost it with Blue Marvel or something like that. Like, I do find a lot of success with her, and now that I just have better cards to kind of go with it. And I will say, I don't know if it's probably just because I'm playing the game more now, or if I'm just like on a hot streak because I came off the battle pass. But I feel like I'm just getting a lot better cards and like more cards more
Nice.
frequently, which is nice. I like the last couple of months. I feel like I've been getting some really really good cards that I've been just wanting for like a really long time. Like I think at the start of the summer, like I didn't even have Venom or anything like that,
Yeah.
and like now
That's true.
I got Null, I got Venom, I got my Spider Girls, with Spider Gwen
Yeah.
and or Ghost
Who's
Spider,
the
whatever the hell they call her.
who's the Series 3 card that you're looking for this month? Your free season,
What
free
was
monthly card, whatever it's called. I think
yeah
it's
I
Wong. Maybe Wong should be the one you scout out for at this
is
point.
he a 3? Is he a
Could
series
be.
3? Oh my gosh. The other one that I really want to get, which I think is a series 5, is Gilgamesh.
Yeah,
Um
he's pretty new still. So and he was a seasons pass one, I think. So he's gonna
oh okay.
be. He's not gonna drop for quite some time.
I'll keep my eyes out
But
for
yeah, I don't
him.
think he's popped up in a like once again. I think we had this conversation recently where like, God, there's so many cards in the game that it takes so long for any character to get a second appearance in the spotlight cache. And
Right.
Gilgamesh, I don't think has appeared in any because he was a seasons pass character, and that's it. So I don't think he's even appeared in one yet. So I really want him too because he looks super freaking strong when I've played against him.
Yeah.
I just didn't pick up that month, so I didn't have him. But yeah, he looks really fun. So I don't know when
Especially
we'll
in
get him in
those zoo decks, because like
there.
isn't that the idea? Like if you boost someone else, he adds to the
Yeah, spam your one
uh,
cost, get them buffed with a
yeah.
Kazar, and then yeah, get them. I don't know, 8 or 10 extra damage, something crazy like that.
I was kind of getting like analysis paralysis with the series 3 for a while. Like I would just be like checking every day. I'm like, that's not a good enough one, and then I would just keep waiting. And now I just kind of jump on whatever one
Yeah,
I like enough. Like Silver Surfer was the one I got this month, just because
great card, super good. Yeah,
I haven't even used him yet, but I'm just like, I love Silver Surfer. I gotta get my boy. I gotta add him to the collection. I'll get all 151 Pokemon. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
he's
But
super fun. I mean, he's one of those cards that just opens up like a whole archetype. Like you can build a whole deck around him, and so that's always a fun one to get, like a high Evo, or anything like that, where it's just like, man, this one card defines like the whole deck I'm about to create, and that just makes, I don't know, for me it adds a lot of fun of deck building potential. So, and you have like probably, I don't know, 20, 30 different 3-cost cards you even have right now, so you just have a lot of potential to pair with him.
yeah,
The only downside, once again, is he is a card that is fantastic alongside Wong. He really pairs nicely with him. So not having him
yeah,
is like feels like a missing piece of the puzzle. But you have Grandmaster, so there's an option. Or
that's true.
I'm sure you have Odin, right? Like, 'cause you get him
Yep,
pretty early on. So
he's a
those are
series
some other
1.
good ways to make sure you get that popped off multiple times.
And oh Valkyrie, maybe Valkyrie was the one I got actually. Like I feel like I'm just getting more Series 3 in
Yeah.
collection chests now too, so they
Yeah,
just kind
you
of
get them
blend
pretty
together.
often, I think, with your current collection level.
Yeah, exactly. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so for Wong is one that I still don't have that I really, really, really want. Arnim Zola, that's the other one that I'm like
Yeah.
really needing for like a destroy deck, or like even just pairing with Symbiote Spider-Man. It feels like if I had those, I probably would have got the battle pass, but I don't. So it's like,
Right.
and he is interesting with his activate ability. He probably would pair well with something I have, like, but I don't know. I just don't feel like investing fully in it until I have the other pieces that I kind of want to get beforehand. But
Yeah.
and Nimrod, that's another one that I don't have yet. But
Oh yeah, he was just in the I think last week's Spotlight cache, but
Yeah,
can't win
ended
them
up
all,
waiting,
unfortunately.
which I'm glad for because obviously this month I cashed in all of them. And I'm starting to save up my keys for
Very nice.
the next round that I do want to get. Can't remember what the next one is.
Yeah, Nimrod's fun because dude, they just changed a Tuma. They gave him a new ability, which is a really cool ability, and it pairs really nicely with Nimrod. So I was playing a lot of that deck again, and they also changed Destroyer, so I kind of had to rework the deck I used with those characters.
What did they do with Destroyer?
They made it so they gave him a little bit less power, so he has 14 power now, which is still like a shit ton. But now he only destroys the other locations. So wherever you put him, he doesn't kill those cards, so you can at least guarantee some safety.
Okay.
So yeah, it opens up. It's weird. It like opens up some potential, but then for other decks, like the one that I had, it actually makes him a bit worse. Like it's better if he hits everyone because I want him to hit Wolverine. I want him to hit all my Nimrods, and I don't want to protect anything. But then it opens up this potential now where like you put a Tuma somewhere, you put Nimrod down, you put Destroyer down in a Tuma's lane, so now a Tuma is safe in theory. But then once again, a Tuma might hit Destroyer. So I don't know. It needs some work. But I don't know. I feel like they changed him a little bit, but then they also gave him like another free card. Like a lot of people have a Tuma, and it's just another good potential there. So something to work with. You have Destroyer in your collection?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was running them for a while. In one of my Destroy decks. I can't quite remember, but yeah, a little while ago I was using them. Yeah. And I actually stand corrected. Psylocke was actually my monthly pick this time around. So Silver Surfer must have just popped up in another collection chest along with the other one. But yeah, Psylocke, I don't know, it was one that I never had, and I'm like, seems like a useful card. I'm gonna pick her up.
Yeah, she fits so nicely in a lot of decks. Any deck where your like key card is a 4 cost, so you can try and ideally get that card in your hand, get Psylocke in your hand, play it turn 2, and then get that 4 cost out on turn 3.
Yeah,
that's kind of usually the go-to. But yeah, she's just a very versatile card. I like her a lot for sure.
So yeah, my deck's starting to look pretty damn nice. I will admit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to pick up Kate Bishop there and try out some new decks with that. Like, I think I want to just make a classic collector deck or like Devil Dinosaur sort of deck again. I haven't done that in a while. I didn't pick up this season's pass, and I don't think I will at this point. I think Symbiote Spider-Man looks really cool, and I like the new Activate ability. That's fun that there's kind of a new thing like that in the game. But I didn't feel like I needed it, and I also, like I said last month, I based it off like, okay, what are the variants that are in the season's pass, and I didn't really care much for the Spider-Man, or I think it's Miles that's in there, and I didn't really like those a whole lot. So I didn't feel like picking it up. Once again, he could be one I'll pick up in October when he goes to the token shop. But I'm excited for the other Activate cards that are coming out this month because it's cool to have a fun new mechanic like that in the game. It'll be fun to see what that's like in a few months when we have a few of those in the game. They talked about how they're going to maybe rework a couple old cards to add them in there. And then eventually we're going to get like the Cosmos and Enchantresses of the world, like the counters to activate. And I think that'll be fun to have like that whole new archetype in there. So yeah, it should be a fun month. I like the cards that are coming out. I might pick up a couple more of them. So yeah, it's a good time. Always a good time with Marvel Snap. Anything else, Kirklin, for this week?
No, I don't think so. I might be getting a little computer upgrade in the next couple months here, so that'll definitely change the overall gaming experience on PC side at least. And I like first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna boot up Warhammer 3. I'm gonna boot up all ultra graphics, everything, and I'm gonna jump into a game and not have to wait 15 minutes for load times. That is the most exciting thing I can even think about with a computer upgrade, let alone just having all my tabs freeze up because my computer's slow. But yeah,
I remember for me back in the day when I got my computer upgrade, it was I can't wait to play Skyrim on ultra graphics, which I feel like by today's standards it was like it looks all right. You know, it's still a lot of grays and whites and browns, but yeah, that's cool. I'm happy for you. You know, like Skyrim 2 with all the million mods, I'm sure the load time on that would be a lot better with a new computer.
Oh, I can like barely run on this computer. It's sad because when I got this computer, I told myself, I'm like, first thing I'm gonna do is boot up Total War Rome 2. Ultra graphics, everything booted up. I could not run it even on like high graphics. It was just way too bogged down. I'm like, oh no, this is sad. I'll spend all this money, but can't even do that. But hopefully the next one.
I think I'm in a market for a PC upgrade pretty soon here too. So maybe we can talk about that soon enough. But thank you for joining me. This was a fun episode, and thank you for listening. We'll be back next week for an undetermined topic. You'll have to tune in to find out. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you next time. Bye bye.